you have a presenter that works with youth. He's a youth development program specialist, and his official title is International Communications Specialist and Youth Expert. He is based in Praia, Cape Verde. Praia, Cape Verde. And he is here with us today. This is your first time at the ICD?
Right.
Yes? And the chairs have been set in this position, not by accident, but because they're going to be utilized. He needs room to prance and run around and do what he does. So, can I have a big ICD welcome for Antonio? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so fantastic. Welcome, everybody. And as you know, we are going to talk about the importance of youth empowerment and participation. I'm going to showcase the Africa-Europe Youth Cooperation. Okay, so let's see first why it's important the empowerment of youth. Oh, and yet the session outlines that you have an idea what we're going to do now. So that's the introduction we have already done, the brief presentation in 5 minutes. Then we will have this youth empowerment and leadership short talk, group reflections, 5 minutes, 10 minutes about participation and key aspects, post-2015 agenda, global education, communication for development and culture of peace, like key facts. Then 10 minutes about building a strategy at 3 levels of youth participation. 10 minutes for Africa-Europe Youth Cooperations, 5 for the network of universities on youth and development. There is straightly linked with the Africa-Europe Youth Cooperation. And then we will make the final summary and conclusions to link what is youth empowerment and participation with cultural diplomacy. Okay, so as we are a little bit constrained on time, I will have to go quite quick. Sorry about that, but I will be fully open for discussion and questions. Okay. So the reflection is about numbers. So why youth is really important on cultural diplomacy, why youth is important in decision-making processes. So firstly, we have the numbers. So 43% of the world population is under the age of 30 and 1 billion are between 10 and 24 years old. So that means a lot. You know, a lot of people, and in particular in Africa, it represents much more than these numbers because most of the African population is young populations. So politicians and decision makers cannot take their decision without taking into account why the young ones, why they are the priorities for the youth. Okay, so it has been 20 years since the Earth Summit in Rio, where youth took a stand and demanded that world leaders listen to them. There was a big hit in 1922. We have now, a few months ago, the Rio +20 summit that we will talk later about from the youth perspective. Okay, so it has been 14 years since the first ministers' conference in Portugal, where the Braga Youth Declaration called for a better representation of youth globally. And still nowadays, we are working to get youth properly represented in the global sphere. So on January 25th, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon announced that youth will be a focus in the next 5-year program for the UN, and that he was going to appoint a special advisor for youth. So this is really important because in 2010 we have the year of youth, was fully dedicated to youth by the United Nations. They realized how important is that, and now they are declaring this 5-year process. So that is a way to recognize and to empower youth at global level. Okay, and now what we are gonna do is just make like small groups, talk with your partner about youth empowerment. So I want you to reflect, when was the first time you were empowered? So when was the first time in your life you feel empowered? So please discuss with your partner nearby, and then we'll put in common afterwards. Thank you. I didn't want to give it to you before because I didn't want to influence anyone. So in my case, when I was at primary school, I think the last year in primary school, I was chosen as a representative of my class by all my classmates. And then I had a lot of responsibilities at that time to give reports to the professor. And that was, I think, my first time I was feeling really empowered with this kind of position and responsibility and also service over me. Okay, please go ahead. Who wanna share with us?
My first time was like 1997, something like that, when I organized my own team, and I sponsored it. It's not like a big team. It was just a youth I put together, and we went as far as the semi-final, the final, but we were defeated. And that was kind of impression that I got, that maybe I have a responsibility to create, that kind of business with the youth, interact with them. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah. So how old were you, more or less?
I was like 17 at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And they were under age 12 years,
Okay.
Organize that kind of youth program always. So from that time, I was more engaged in youth issues.
Yes. Congratulations.
Yeah. Despite the defeat.
Yes. So anybody else want to share with us, please?
Yeah, I grew up in Northern Ireland, so one of the first times I remember feeling empowered was when we took part in a lot of cross-community projects, trying to bring both sides of the Catholic and Protestant communities together, and then really thinking that youth can make a difference, working together towards a common goal. So, and I was probably around maybe 14, 15.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Yeah, great, fantastic. Who else? Yep.
I wouldn't say I was born like that, because you always get nervous when you still have to take up leadership position. But growing up from class 1, thereabout, you were trusted to we have the cupboard person who is in charge of the cupboard, keeps the books. When homeworks are brought, you are the one who makes sure that everybody has submitted theirs, and you keep records. So from childhood, it's like you've done it and you feel important. You have parents who say like, you can do it, that's good. So it's like, it has gone on through even to my university level, where I became the student representative president. So it's like, it's something that comes natural. You just step into it. I think I stepped into it and it became fun, and it has been it. Okay. But I think some people are naturally, would I say born empowered? That's my own opinion. Some people are naturally born empowered. Other people are made empowered. Other people just chance into empowerment, and then...
Yeah, that brings us a big debate about leadership. Are the leaders born or made? So, but yeah, we cannot enter in that discussion. So, last person just to share their thoughts about empowerment. First time they feel empowered?
The first time I felt empowered was when I got the salary of my first job in the supermarket, and then I felt, like I'm not dependent anymore on my parents. Well, I felt that at least. That was my first.
First time I felt empowered was when I got my library card. I don't know how it is today, but in the 50s it was a big thing. In fact, it was the first document I ever had that had my name on it, typed on it, and I had to sign it. And certainly being able to go to the library and bring your books home, was an important obligation and task for me. So I just thought I'd share that. Evidently, other people had the same experience. Okay.
Okay. So thank you very much. I think everybody knows what it is to feel empowered. Everybody has been empowered once, twice, many times. So it is not needed to talk more, but I want to talk now about participation, that is a bit different from empowerment. Okay, so the youth and the post-2015 agenda, why I'm putting this here? Because this is a very important process where youth can be involved in the decision-making process and in the youth participation. Fantastic.
A declaration of interdependence. We are connected. We are many. We all dream of a better world. The pace of change is accelerating, and the challenges we face are more global and complex than ever before. New ways of thinking and working collaboratively are needed to address these issues. We must work inclusively across cultures, organizations, and networks to champion the role of youth. We will challenge old paradigms, move beyond divisions, and hold our leaders accountable. We can harness technology to co-create a peaceful, sustainable planet for all. Together, we will help to grow the next generation of leaders, enabling them to change the world.
Okay, so that's it, very brief. So that's clearly an example of how participation is important, how youth can be involved for changing the world. So it's just an appetizer, an aperitif. There's going to be in next December in the UNFPA Beyond 2014 conference. There's going to gather around 1,000 youth. You can also join the forum online. That's going to be quite important because, as you know, the UN is really committed with youth participation, and they are sponsoring quite a few activities. And they want youth leaders, youth people that is really involved in activities, in youth work, to be part of the decision making and to advocate together. Okay, so within the UN system, we have a lot of agencies. We will talk about that later, very briefly. So we were in the post-2015 agenda. So for those who haven't heard about that, what is this? You have heard about the Millennium Development Goals. I can guess almost everybody have been hit by the information of the NDGs. So NDGs has 8 main goals to be achieved for 2015, linked to human development, social development, and where the countries who are farther away from getting that goals are mainly in Africa. And that's where a lot of money is invested in a lot of projects because, yeah, I mean, NDGs are the basics for the human development. So just related to human conditions like having not hunger, having basic education, women's rights, etc. So these are basic. But what's going to happen after 2015? So that was discussed at Rio Plus 20. What we're going to have after that, because even if we achieve that, that's not the final goal. We still have to continue in progressing, in development. So then the people start to talk about the SDGs. What is SDGs? It's Sustainable Development Goals. So just to put the concept of sustainable development into the agenda. Other people were talking about what if human rights. Why not the NDGs are just the human rights? So the goal is just to achieve human rights in all the countries in the world. Or what about peace? Peace is really important. So what happens in Africa? We have conflicts and war, violence. We have conditions that are not peace, culture of peace as a whole. And that's one of the main challenges for the development. Okay? And then it was also discussed about the youth, how the youth is going to be developed, how the youth is going to be involved in the post-2015 agenda. And this debate is starting now. So if you are really interested in being involved for the next year in youth processes, that is your place. So please look for organizations. Normally they are meeting on regional or continental levels, gathering. So they take their own proposals into the global level. So normally it goes from grassroots to local, national, regional, and world level. So if you organize in that way, you can participate and be part of this process. That will be really important for us and for the next generations. Okay, another key point for youth participation is global education. Why global education is important? Because education, as it has been done, and it has been used to work, it is not matching the needs of young people. It is not achieving many of the goals. So the current formal system is not enough to empower and to make youth participate and to make the development and to have a more equitable world. So global education is an approach that allows the person to develop themselves, okay? So it's open the people's eyes and minds to the realities of the globalized world and awakens them to bring about a world of greater justice, equity, and human rights for all. Global education is understood to encompass development education, human rights education, education for sustainability, education for peace and conflict prevention, and intercultural education. So it's a full process of learning where you are able to develop yourself, your values, and not just a rigid process where you deliver content from one professor to one pupil or one student and just is not anymore. So that is where the concept of global education is really linked to youth and can help to empower youth and to promote youth participation. Another way to promote participation, youth participation, is communication for development. Communication for development is an approach developed in the framework of the United Nations, led by UNICEF and UNDP. And communication for development wants to train people, like youth leaders, and to empower them, to give them voice to be heard by their communities. So what's the aim of communication for development? It's just to provide tools, to provide methods, channels, media to those people in the communities and to make them part of the decision-making processes. So why the communication is so important? Because they stress the need of support a two-way communication system and enable the dialogue that allow communities to speak out, express their aspirations and concert, and participate in the decisions that relate to the development. Okay? It's a social process based on the dialogue, using a broad range of tools and methods. It's about seeking challenge at different levels, including listening, building trust, sharing knowledge and skills, building policies, debating and learning for sustainable and meaningful change. Okay? So this is completely different to institutional communication, media relations, or whatever you heard about communication. This is a fully comprehensive approach where the person is in the middle and it promotes the participation, the involvement, the multi-directional communication. It is a process that empowers our youth leaders can be really play an important role. Communication for development can be used in the three main levels, okay? Can be used at the micro level, communication for behavior change. So what we can do on the communities is to apply communication for change the behavior and develop. So imagine the youth people in your community is not involved. They don't feel motivated to participate. So what you can do with them? So that's when communication for behavior change comes. So you have to use different kinds of communications, of awareness, to make them motivate for the youth participation. Okay, but also to prevent youth violence, to prevent like teens pregnancy, to prevent unemployment, any kind of social problems they have on the roots behaviors, and the communication goes directly to the behaviors to change them. Because at the UN level, for many years, they realized that the development projects and programs were not changing so much. They were not achieving the goals that they wanted. So they realized that communication was essential to get the changes. And there was communication for development as a full approach was developed. So at the meso level, we had communication for social change and mobilization. That means as a bigger level than communities. It's the communication we can use as cities, local levels. And then at macro level, we use communication for advocacy. So how youth can be empowered to advocate for their own rights, for their own needs, for their own concerns, okay? And this communication for advocacy is what we are gonna talk later on when we talk about the network of universities on youth and development, because it's at global level, okay? And the last one about youth participation is cultural peace, also link it to the UN, but in this case, link it more to the UNESCO. So cultural peace is a set of values, attitudes, modes of behavior and ways of life that reject violence and prevent conflict by tackling their root causes to solve problems through dialogue, negotiation among individual groups and nations. Okay, so why is this important? Because if we want to empower youth and youth participating, we need a culture of peace. The youth cannot participate in decisions where there is violence, where there is intimidation. So it's not possible. I mean, a culture of peace is on the basis, on the essentials for the youth participation and the involvement in society. Okay, so this is the 8 points of the approach that you can take a quick look. And you see how culture of peace is not just related to war and peace. It's related about promoting the conditions for human development, to promoting this culture that allows to develop the human person. Okay? And now, very quickly, because I guess we are running out of time. I see your face. So we're trying, but we just have 5 minutes in 3 groups to build a strategy for youth participation, very basic. So we're going to divide in 3 basic levels, a micro, meso, and macro. So people is going to divide those who want to work on micro on one side, on meso, and on macro level. On micro level, they should make a strategy about how a single youth that is in your neighborhood, that is in your community, can be involved in the decision-making process, how they can participate, what shall they do, okay? And the meso level, what they're gonna see is what is the next step. So when do we have these basic youth organizations, how can they advocate to be part of the decision-making process, for instance, in the local municipalities, in the prefectures, in the cities, in the province governments, whatever. And then at the macro level, we're going to see what is the strategy for youth participate into the government processes, decision-making processes, into the international and global decision-making processes. So let's start. So we can divide more or less in homogeneous group, depending on your interest. So those who are more interested in micro can stay here, meso in the middle, and macro in this side, please. And let's start. I think it makes sense to start at micro, meso, and macro, so we can build. And then we can have our strategy of youth participation. Yeah, please.
Thank you. We were thinking of using resources which are already there. So by making use of schools, and then in a way of mentoring, like you take the individuals by hand and you lead them the way. You inform them how they could participate in a good way. So that's a possibility. Do we have
would be like the churches, the schools, and the scouts to promote having a mentoring program. So both the kids being mentored and the mentors are both taking something out of it. So
yeah, right.
The idea was also to get both the children and the mentor empowered, getting them empowered by the sense of responsibility and by the sense of looking up to someone else who would lead them in the right way. And that would go in many directions, maybe from arts, if you're looking for a way to be more artistic, or you want to play an instrument, or you want to join a choir or whatever, from sports, or any interest that children, that people, young people could have. And also then in a big way, trying to reproduce this so that persons that were mentored would feel like mentoring afterwards when they reach another level of responsibility.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really important. So because youth should feel this responsibility, we promote this responsibility sense on the youth, so the youth can be part of the process and they notice themselves are responsible for the process. Otherwise, they wouldn't feel motivation to participate. So, and the basic idea also is to tell them that it is needed to be associated, it is needed to be in groups. One individual as itself is really difficult because, I mean, imagine we are millions, billions of young people, no? So in order to organize this dialogue, to structure it, it needs to be properly. So youth should be part of associations, organizations, church, scouts, whatever movements, in order to be representativity of the group, in order to take part into the democracy process and the decision making. Okay? So this is really important to tell this university or high school or that they should be in SAN if they want to participate. Otherwise, it's really complicated. You know? So, but yeah, these two key things are clear on the strategy. Yeah, please, next one.
We discussed that as a middleman of micro and macro, probably we can be act as an agent to connect micro level and macro level, and probably through, we said understanding what community wants would be the most important. So we can do some community service program or something related with, involved with community and take their voice to deliver to the higher levels of authority like a government.
Right.
And let them understand what community wants and try to make sure they will make an effort to meet community's need.
Right. Yes, so exactly that's one important point, because once you have a group of young people, a youth group, then they need to know what to do, no, afterwards. So, I mean, there is a lot of youth groups, but many times it's just for having fun and for anything, and they can go one step forward. So they can do community service, they can do social projects, they do whatever, awareness campaigns, co-education with migrants populations and refugees. They can do a lot. And they don't need anything, they don't need funding, they just need the will to do it, okay? So that is where the strategy is important, is just to motivate these young people to be part. And then many times it's an automatic process, because the mayors of the city needs to know what the youth needs, what they want, but they don't know to whom ask and where to go and who. So sometimes it's only the political youth branch or whatever, the party youth branch. And then there's a lot of youth groups that are informal, that can be formal, can be organized, can develop. So this encouraging to make activities, to participate in the community, to be active driving force of the change. It's not just complaining because the city is dirty, or because, no, it's just being the driving force. So when I make a clean campaign, or when I get a recycling awareness activity, and taking the other youth with them. And that is the way it can be organized. Yeah, so thank you very much. And now at the macro level.
Thank you. So we discussed that at a macro level, it would be best to get involved with NGOs to gather people, young minds, young energies, basically, in order to be heard, right? Also, high school organizations or even younger people to come together and bring their voice forward. Also, it's very important to have young representatives in parliaments, especially, well, I don't know if you can say especially, but when it comes to issues regarding education or sports, health, something, people that are directly affected by policies. Furthermore, you can also go for numbers, signatures, or just if there's an issue you need support, then you make sure that you have people that support it. So you can use media channels, as in even social media channels, to spread your word and to make sure that people know about your initiative or your issue, and to be heard, basically. And this is also how to reach out internationally, that using, say, Facebook, Twitter, I don't know, all the other channels you have, to reach out and find counterparts in other countries, NGOs that have the same initiative or objective, basically, in order to be heard at an international level as well. Any other?
Yeah, for the national levels can be joined together to influence the international level. For example, all the student union, all the youth union, the national unions can support each other to defend specific issues, just like war, environmental issues, and these kind of issues, which is all the people agree about the values of it. So they can join each other and participate in global pressure groups to make their voice heard, and to pressure as well to be in every specific committee in the United Nations. They should be a representative for the youth, to bring from outside their voices and to take out the feedback for the youth, so as to take the next step. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly the really important. So once we have the organizations in local level, they should be organized at national, international level, so they can make networks, they can make national youth councils, wherever youth unions. So how many knows if in your country is a national youth organization, it's a national youth platforms? How many countries where you are coming from, maybe there is no this national youth institution? So this is a really important field to work in, because, I mean, youth is a larger part of the population, as in particular in Africa. So if this country has no a youth national council, how can they be taken into account? I mean, I'm sure that if you ask any young person all over the world, they will answer that none of them will want war, for instance, or violence. So then, if we are able to mobilize all the young people, probably in many of the wars that are in Africa or in other countries wouldn't happen. Because young people didn't want war, didn't want violence. But why is happening? They are not organized, they are not properly empowered, they are not feeling, they feel dismotivated, they feel without willing going to school, they don't want to do, they have nothing to do, so it's very easy for them to fall down into the violence, into the drugs, into other problems. So once we empower them and we put them into the agenda, into the decision processes, they feel this motivation for continue living, for improving their communities, etc. And then, when at global level, if all these networks are joined, are linked together, we are sure that a much better world, a big social change will happen in next years. And 100% agree with the UN should have either a youth body or a youth person involved. And that's where this 5-year program is going to start the first step to have this. And I think the same we have UN Women, that is the UN for women, should be something similar for youth. That is what youth is advocating for. That is where your youth organizations or youth councils of the countries should advocate. So each country has a representative on the UN, and through that, there can be a clear advocacy. So once a country presents that at UN, it can be voted for, but it needs one country to take the first step of the proposal. Okay, but this is just more at macro level. Okay, so thank you very much. And just going to the practical example, because we're running out of time, the showcase. So it's the Africa-Europe Youth Cooperation. Okay, very briefly, because this is really broad. What do they want? So it's just to put together at macro level, okay, a globalized youth from Africa and Europe working together, because it's a real interdependence relation. So it's not anymore this paternalist perspective of Africa or this assistantialist perspective from Africa or Europe. That doesn't exist anymore. Now what we have is two partners on the same level. One depends on the other. One needs the other. And then it has a long background starting from the first Africa-Europe Youth Summit in December 2007. Then we had the second one in 2011. Normally, this Youth Summit takes at the same time that takes place at the same time that the youth, that the Africa-Europe summits are scheduled. So maybe 2-3 days in advance is the Youth Summit, and then the President Summit comes. Okay, the same as the UN level. So in 4 years, more than 1,000 youth leaders and youth multipliers from Europe and Africa has direct access to this program. So what does it mean? So if you have 1,000 youth leaders for the largest youth organizations in Africa and Europe, the effort multiplies. Imagine each network represents around 100 youth associations. So for instance, in Cape Verde, where I'm working now, the Cape Verde Youth Federation represents around 700 youth associations for all the municipalities of the country. So that is a lot. So when someone from this federation participates in an event and then convey these messages to the leaders of these youth organizations, is a huge impact because it's a lot of young people that is going to be involved. And thus, if we go a step forward at the continental or at the regional level, we need to have that network. That way is doing the European Youth Forum and the PYU, the Pan-African Youth Union. Okay? So, oops, sorry. So this is the aims. What you can see, you can read it briefly. So, and we have the specific role that the European Center for Global Interdependence and Solidarity has played in this process. So this has been a key catalyzer, a key driving force of all the process, either mobilizing, either funding and everything. Okay, just to finish in 5 minutes, sorry. We have this network. So the network of universities on youth and development is also a natural process that is linked to the youth empowerment at the global level. Okay, so what we have is that around 15 years ago, youth people started to realize that it was important to work on the global level, and there was a lot of synergies between youth organizations from different groups all over the world. And they say, well, why don't we create a forum and a space where we can work together and we can advocate for our issues all together, having a much stronger power. So then is where these universities on youth and global citizenship were born. Okay, so then the first one that appeared was in Europe, in southern Spain, that is now on the 14th edition. Okay, so different partners are part of these events. We have big students network of all over the world. We have big youth NGOs. We have all the national youth councils, the European Youth Forum. In Latin America, we have the similar on American basis. So we have the Latin American and Caribbean Youth Forum. This is the largest youth organization in the region. We have the big NGOs like YMCA, Scouts, etc., involved in doing this space for youth participation and citizenship that happens once a year. Then we have the African one. I'm gonna spend a few more minutes later on. So the African version, it's born also in the Africa-Europe Youth Cooperation process. So they realize the need of having a space together, youth from both continents. So they decide once a year, 1 week, to gather all these leaders and to discuss each year in one different topic. So what is our priorities, what we should advocate for, what are the most important issues for the African young people and for the European, and then they collect all that in a final declaration, and they take into the UN, into all the decision-making bodies, into the European Union and the African Union. Okay, and the last one that is going to start next year, the Mediterranean one, that will gather the Mediterranean Youth Organizations, sponsored by the Council of Europe and the League of Arab States. Okay, so we have capacity building and training activities, political coordination among partners, networking and information sharing, framework for sustainable and permanent interregional and global cooperation, advocacy for youth participation into the global decision-making process. Okay, so you see that it's really, really at the global level. So all youth participants of these activities are really involved in global work activities, either through the youth organization or national youth platforms. Okay, so we have the challenges, the coordination on global context. For instance, here in between Latin America and Africa, Euro-Africa Youth Cooperation. We have the projection of regional specificities and priorities on the global youth agenda, strengthening the coordination of the university's agenda, and harmonize the range of partners. Okay, so for more information about that, you can see my email there. You have also a small leaflet that I have given to all of you, okay? So those who haven't got, they can take one from there. This is talking specifically about the 4 African universities, just to show you what we did there. So the Africa University is going to have the next edition next year, probably around May, June. And this is a very exceptional opportunity for you, for your organizations, for the ICP, to organize an activity in this framework. So what we are doing is providing the basic framework. We provide you the space, we provide you the rooms to work, we provide all the venues, and then organizations come there and they have the meeting, and then there is a joint program. Imagine you have 10 parallel activities from 10 different large organizations. They have this joint program where they join all together, when they realize of the synergies, when they share their expectations, when they discuss. It's really much enriching to have 10 parallel youth events than to have your own organization into one concrete place and then in another place. So that's why this network was born at this university. So please feel free, if you really like this Africa-Europe cooperation, to contact us, and because we will get you a space in this university, either as a participant or as an organization. As a participant, you can be involved in all of the trainings, parallel activities, through the open calls that the organizations are publishing. And as an organization, you can contact us, and we will see the manage to feed you on the agenda. How many days do you need? What kind of a space? We also arrange you the visa. That's really important, because you know what a big problem to travel from Africans to Europe to get the visa, from Europeans to Africa to get the visa in the African country. So we get all that for you, all the logistics, so that you need to take your people over there and build your agenda.
And come. So what I have to say is, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Give Antonio a big round of applause. Somebody who has a lot of passion and a lot of power for the youth. Thank you very much, Antonio.